welcome to today's recipe for success here at JA World. We are not in the JA World kitchen this morning. We are not in my kitchen this morning. We are actually in my office this morning. So lots of changes going on around here. But today, I don't know if you've been watching the show, but there have just been some amazing guests and leaders who have come on and shared their ingredients to success. It has been such an inspiration for me. And today I know will be no different with the guests that we have for you. Devmotwani, President and CEO of Merrimack Ventures, has been a staple, an amazing part of this community for so long. Proud to be a Leadership Florida alumni with him and work with him alongside him in the community. So good morning and welcome, Dev.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Laurie.
You're welcome. You know, last night, knowing that you were coming on this morning, I was thinking about, so I was on the selection committee for Leadership Florida the year that you applied. So I'm sitting next to Greg Gale and we're going through all this. And by the way, that was the year that I think we got the most in from Broward. And he said, we got to get this, we got to get Devin. And I'm like, Dev who? I didn't know of you at that time or I hadn't met you. And he said, Devmotwani. And I'm like, who is he? What did he do? And he goes, just listen to me. We have to get him in. And I'm like, okay, if you say we have to get him in, you got my vote. You got my support. And then I got to know you more after that. So I'm glad that I was there to help. And thank goodness Greg was next to me. So
yeah, well, thank you for the support. I appreciate it. It was a great program and great organization. So I was lucky to be chosen.
Yeah, too bad we didn't get to have our retreat this year, but always lots of great leaders that we would get to learn from. So
and a lot of fun.
Yeah. So first of all, how are you through all of this?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, thanks. The first few months were a little touch and go. We had a lot of hospitality, interests, and obviously a lot of employees we were trying to take care of. So at the beginning, it was a little bit more intense, but I've kind of gotten into the new rhythm, the kind of COVID rhythm, I guess. Life is getting back a little bit back to normal. We're very busy work-wise, with good things happening, and looking forward. Trying to open more businesses back up and bring people back to work. So it's an interesting time. It's in ways a exciting time. Obviously a tough time. We're very fortunate that we were able to keep most of our employees and operate most of our businesses through, although with obviously modified hours and procedures. But we're very fortunate to be where we are, and now we're just looking to the future.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the hospitality industry obviously is one of the hardest hit industries, I think, in this pandemic. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel for the industry, Dev? What do you think is going to help bring it back?
Well, look, I mean, the obvious thing is, it's a vaccine that, at some point, but I think we all know that there's going to be a long period of time, even if we had one today, before it actually went and really changed our daily life. But I think people are starting to get back comfortable going out. People are comfortable wearing masks. Florida, we're trending in the right direction now. And so, for a while, I think people, even when things reopened, just didn't want to go out, whether it was because they didn't want, they were nervous about going out, or they just didn't feel like going out if they couldn't, kind of be out and about at restaurants and, back to what was normal. And I think now we've just gotten used to the new normal. And so I think we'll trend in the right direction. Hopefully, we'll continue to see a downward decline. But I think as more and more people get comfortable, the better and better hospitality will do.
Yeah. I think you're right. And now you're also in the development business, right? So a lot of real estate development, a lot of building that you and your family are doing. That seems to be booming. Thank goodness.
It was certainly going very well going into this. We have seen some slowdown. I mean, development takes a long time before you get a shovel in the ground on a project, you're probably 2 to 3 years of work in advance of that. So when the general public sees it go up, that's a mature project from a timeline perspective already. So some of these effects won't be seen for another year or two, and I do think it'll slow down. And in some cases that's probably okay. We had a lot going on, and so I think that we have a lot of inventory that was being delivered across different asset types. And so, I think that's okay. We're very fortunate. We're in South Florida. People want to be here. They continue to move here. So there continues to be, consistent demand. And if we don't build more product, that just means pricing is going to go up, and it'll make it even harder from an affordability standpoint for many people. So we do need to keep some inventory coming. But in general, construction stayed essential throughout. And so, we were fortunate that the governor and state continued that on with additional regulations, and we've been following those. And a lot of what we do is in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and they've been great. They put on additional regulations, as they should. But at the same time, they let businesses, where they could, continue to operate safely. And so we've been fortunate in that regard, that we're able to continue those projects along. It took some getting used to, like every part of our life. It took some getting used to, but it's a resilient industry, and we're a resilient community and country, and so people have adapted, and we're continuing on. So we are still looking at new projects. I've got a closing actually happening tomorrow to build a new apartment building, a project we've been working on for a while, and also I'm looking at buying some additional properties. We're cautious, but we still believe in South Florida, and particularly Broward and Fort Lauderdale. So we'll continue to be active. It's
keep building. Yes, absolutely. So, I think one of the things that I love about this show is that I get to hear people's stories, right? You're a young guy, not too much younger than me, but a little bit. And you've achieved great success, right? I come from an amazing family. I think it's great for people, if you could just share a couple of pivotal moments, right, for you that got you to where you are. I mean, was it predestined? Did you have to go into this business, right, because this is where your family was? Or did you fall in love with it? Like, tell us why you're here.
Sure. Well, thank you for saying I'm young. I don't feel so young these days. Love hearing that. But it was anything but predestined that I would be back in South Florida working in real estate. I grew up living in a motel on the beach that my parents bought, and we moved here in the mid '80s. So I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, product of Broward schools. But I went away to college. I went to North Carolina to go to Duke and undergrad. And I had a lot of friends that were from the New York area. I got introduced to kind of Wall Street finance. And I actually spent 2 summers in DC, one working for investment bank and one working in the White House. So I spent all my time, all my summers outside of Florida. And I decided I didn't want to go back to Florida. And the experience I had growing up was that we lived in the motels that we owned and operated. And so I was surrounded by a parents' business, and I didn't know that we had a real estate business. I thought we had a motel business because that's what I saw. And so, and we had both because we own the land, but we also own the properties above. But, as the city kicked out spring break, right after we moved here, the existing business became worth less and less, but the land value was appreciating. And so anyways, I decided to go to New York. My brother did the same thing. We both went to Wall Street, and we said, we're never going back to Florida. And we don't want to work in real estate. And, when we were younger, my dad had passed away. My mom had taken over the business. She was always active before. They were a team, but she kind of had to take over everything. And so she called one day and said, I'm coming to New York for a business meeting. I have lunch with Donald Trump. Do you guys want to join? And this is pre-politics, pre-apprentice even. So So forget whatever your opinion is, good or bad. This was back in the day, and one thing everyone knew about Trump was that he was a successful New York real estate operator, and so that's when we realized we had more than a motel business, that we had a real estate business. And so that's how we ended up back here. That was exciting to learn about development and where you get to actually create something and kind of create value. And that's how it happened. I ended up going to Columbia University in New York, has a real estate program, master's in real estate. So I went there, and I say I kind of learned the institutional textbook real estate world from that. But my real education was just growing up, living it, and being in an entrepreneurial family and rolling up our sleeves. And we worked every day in the business. We probably broke a few child labor laws here and there. A maid didn't show up.
You were related. It was okay.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. We didn't seem to be worried about it. We were worried about paying the bills. And so I think that entrepreneurial spirit and that roll up your sleeves mentality is probably what's meant most to my ability to kind of jump into the business. But it helps certainly to have kind of that New York experience as well.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you, being a native New Yorker, that there's something to be learned to surviving in New York, for sure. You mentioned the internship on Wall Street, and you mentioned the internship and working in the White House. You must have learned a lot of things at that time, about yourself, about those experiences. What was it? The one or two things that really stick out to you from those times that you learned to take, that you now took with you?
Well, when I got the opportunity at the White House, and then I ended up getting a full-time job opportunity. So I actually took a semester off of college and worked on the campaign, presidential campaign that was going on at the time. I think I just kind of realized early on, because I was young and I was given a lot of responsibility, that I just gained a lot of confidence in my ability to do things that kind of seemed out of touch or beyond my age. I was just very fortunate. I got lucky that I was able to get in at the right place at the right time. And so then at that point, nothing really seemed beyond reach in terms of like my age and my experience. And but at the same time, it was intense, and there was a lot of responsibility. So I always treated it as, if I got a responsibility, or if I was given an opportunity, that I had to perform. There was no failing. When you're wearing a badge and walking into the West Wing every day, you can't forget to you can't have an off day. And so that gave me that kind of confidence, but also to strive for things that maybe felt beyond reach. And then in New York, it was really, I learned that you can achieve a lot in any given day, because I was working 18-hour days, working 7 days a week. I mean, we hardly had time to sleep.
Wait, have we changed from New York to now? I don't know, that sounds pretty much like my life now.
Well, I fortunately am not having to work 7 days a week, 18-hour days. Although with the phone, I guess I'm always on and accessible. But working those hours and working that intensely, now it's very hard for me to get flustered with kind of any amount of work, because going back to that was just super intense. And I cursed it at the time, because I actually didn't sign up for investment banking. I signed up to be on a trading floor, which had much more reasonable hours. So I was kind of thrown to the wolves. And but again, someone put something in front of you, you survive it. It makes you stronger. I did that for a number of years, and to this day, I mean, that work ethic and that ability to get things done and persevere in spite of lack of sleep and lack of personal time and everything, it makes it a lot easier now, because I always think, no matter how bad it gets, can't get as bad as that.
Can't get as bad as that, exactly.
Knock on wood. I'm knocking on wood here.
Exactly. You know, you mentioned your mom and dad, and you said that before your dad passed, that they were a team and they did it together.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what that taught you, and today, right? You're still a family team, I think. You know, from the
Yeah,
outside looking in.
absolutely.
You know, talk a little bit about that, not just from the family perspective, but you know what it means to have that strong team around you and supporting you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everyone knows that when you're out there, having someone by your side that you can trust is probably the most valuable asset you can have. And that, someone, where your interests are aligned, and you're all working towards a common goal. So, I mean, I witnessed at a young age them working together, and it was clear that they had different responsibilities. My dad focused more on the business and finance side. My mom was the one running the day-to-day operations and the employees. But either one of them knew what was going on in the other's world and could jump in. In fact, they often had to, because we had a business back in St. Louis, which is where we moved from, that we would still operate, and that was busy in the summer when the motels here were slow.
Right.
So my mom would actually bring us back to St. Louis. We would spend the summer there with our old friends, and she would operate that business while my dad stayed and operated the Fort Lauderdale business. So they were very much a team in that regard, where they respected each other and they had their kind of division of responsibilities, but they always knew that they could kind of jump into each other's shoes if need be. Just never thought, obviously we didn't know that we were going to lose my dad early and she was going to have to do it permanently. So, but having somebody there by your side that you can rely on and trust 100%, it gives you a very strong sense of just comfort, and so it allows you, I think, to push harder or maybe push farther, because that you have that backup, whether or not you need it. I've got my brother who's working on other things down in Miami, with some of our other partners, so that's his kind of daily responsibility. But if something were to happen, I know, we talk every day. He knows exactly what's going on in my world, and I know that he can jump in, whether it's for a meeting or a public hearing or anything. And so that gives me a lot of confidence. And
Yeah.
things get really hairy, I send mom in, and then
And who can say no to mom, right?
yeah. So
I
we
love
save
her
those for.
passion. She
She's
does
thank.
have a great amount of passion, and so and especially for the industry, we talk a lot about her and I about teaching the next generation about the industry and about the jobs and careers that go in there. But one of the things we're all on Facebook and LinkedIn and all that stuff. One of the things that I often do love, I kind of live a little vicariously through you, is your love of travel and adventure. Right. And so where did you get that from? Where did that sense of, wonder and adventure come from?
I mean, I always loved to travel, and I was fortunate that my parents, did as well. So we took a lot of, not a lot of family trips, but I was exposed to visiting family in India, and usually on those trips we'd get to stop in London or somewhere else. So I always had a curiosity, but maybe not a passion. And it was my first summer, between my freshman and sophomore year of college. I had a buddy. We decided to go backpack around Europe, and we bought Eurail passes and got backpacks and bought tickets and flew over, and that showed me how easy it was to get around. Again, at that time, being 18, 19, it still feels a little uncomfortable kind of going, internationally, and worried about losing your passport, and you're still a kid, but you got to worry about getting around. But then you realize like how easy it is, and so after that, it was just it was wide open for me. Any and every trip, I just jump on a plane. It's easy. Obviously, living down here, we've got a lot of flights from Miami, so it's easy to get around. And I love exploring new cultures. I've been fortunate. I have a lot of friends around and internationally, and so a lot of times when I'm going somewhere, I get to go and kind of visit a friend, and so I get that local feel and that local vibe, which is what I enjoy more than just doing like, a kind of the standard tour. And
right.
still do it because, if it's a standard tour, it usually means you're seeing something cool and interesting.
Yeah.
But I like to mix it up. I like to go to the local spots. So when I spent time backpacking in South America, and I had a buddy who was interning down there for a couple months. So by the time I got there, he knew all the kind of the local joints in Rio, and so we went and checked that out. And those are the memories I have. It's not going to the kind of the fancier restaurants or the cooler spots. It's doing that local stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. My first trip to Europe, I took with my dad, and my dad loved Italy. My dad unfortunately died young too. And I can remember we would go to these little hole in the wall restaurants, and people would be coming in with the accordion, and he'd be singing with them. And it was you just felt like such a part of their culture, right? Like you said, versus being in a big hotel in a fancy restaurant. And so I think that is the fun of it. And so the other thing that I see you post a lot and talk a lot about is food. Are you a foodie?
I don't know that I can. I'm going to give myself that full moniker, but I do love good food. I love trying new things. There's a couple things that I just don't like. Sardines or what. But beyond that, I'm pretty open. I just anytime I go somewhere that's really good, I do it half because I want to share, and then half because I want to support whatever venue I'm at. I think it's a nice way, and it's kind of like a more natural way to market. And so so a little bit of that is just trying to help the business people out. But yeah, I absolutely, during this the shutdown at the beginning, especially, I started cooking a lot more. And so I just started thinking about what my favorite recipes were at different restaurants, and then I just either find them online or find something similar. And so I started doing that, which is exciting because now I get to have my favorite foods at home.
That's right. That's right. I think, you said yourself, you were fortunate, right? You grew up in an amazing family, in a business, went to New York, went to the White House, worked in the White House. I mean, amazing opportunities, right? That a lot of young people, as you said, don't have. It's never, and I feel very fortunate myself, but it's never perfect, right? There's always times in our life when things don't go the way we think they might, or that something happens, and I call it falling, right? Or that we need to, kind of say, okay, well, that didn't work out so well. Let me go this way, right? What have you experienced times like that? And if you did, what got you through them?
Yeah, absolutely, we have. Going back, I watched my parents go through times from the minute we got to Fort Lauderdale. My parents used their life savings to buy a motel. We moved down here. We were the American dream, and then that dream became the American nightmare as the city kicked out spring break, and there were issues in the late '80s with the economy and everything, and so all that business went away almost immediately. And so we were going through tough times as a family, and I was young, but I knew what was, watching what was going on. We lived in the motel. Our living room was connected to the front desk. We had to step in and fill in for employees at times, whether they showed up or whether we had the money to pay for the employees. If we didn't, we would step in. So we went through tough times, and then, I watched my mom and, have to struggle with when my dad passed away. Obviously, that was tough emotionally on all of us. But for her to have to, be strong for us, but then also take over the business and all the debts that we had. So, it was challenging. And I would say, as I started to get involved in the business, I moved back here, in 07. So just before the kind of Great Recession. But even prior to that in New York, I got thrown in with the wolves, and I was working super intensely. And so those were challenging times. But the Great Recession was probably my hardest time, or was definitely my hardest time professionally. And, two things got me by it. One, I knew that no matter how hard I had it, there's no way I had it as hard as my mom had it, what she had to go through, losing the love of her life, losing her business partner, and having to raise two young kids on her own. I knew that, it would be, I'd just be whining if I complained about it. Not to say it wasn't difficult, but in some ways, it was obviously very unfortunate we had to go through that. But we always try to focus on the positive side of things, and so I knew that I could survive it, and so that would probably be my biggest challenge, and I regretted at times during that period moving from New York and leaving this cushy job on Wall Street. Excuse me. And so what am I doing? We still had some motels at the time. So now during the recession, that income was important. So now I'm back running motels. I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. I want to go build towers but that was what you had to do. You just, it wasn't like a choice, I guess, other than persevering and fighting through it. And so you get to the other side. I'll tell you an interesting story. I met with a older real estate guy who's an uncle of someone I went to high school with, who kind of was a mentor during that time and give me advice. And I went in and, I'm like, my whole world's over. I left New York. Now I'm in Florida real estate, and they say it's never coming back and all this stuff. And why did I do that? And he was just laughing at me, and he said, look, he goes, you're in the economy is cyclical. Real estate is cyclical. You're going to have ups and downs. It's not all ups. And he said, at some point, stick with it. At some point, things will get better. And I think within a year of that conversation, I had raised my real estate fund and started to buy new properties. And, it's been a nice process ever since. But, there were times where I completely questioned every decision I made, so those was tough times.
Yeah. And mentors are so important. And that's why, in our programs here, we often have mentors who work, especially with our entrepreneurial teams. They all have mentors helping them along the way, because, you all have so much experience to bring. And that gentleman, right, had been through those ups and downs and knew that you would get through them. And so it's always good to have those in your corner.
Yeah.
So, lots of ingredients. And if we were here at J World and in the kitchen, I would be writing them up on a board. But I always read them back, because people go, wow, I never really put all that on paper, right? What got me here. And so I just want to read back a few of yours. And you talked about resiliency. You mentioned that a couple of times. Hard work, rolling up your sleeves was so important. That entrepreneurial spirit and developing your confidence. Taking opportunities, right? And looking at things, beyond what you think you can do, right? Always looking beyond and going for it, reaching for the stars, I guess. Taking your responsibilities seriously. And as you said, you've been given a lot of responsibility, you've been given a lot of good fortune. And so I know that that's something that you all, as a family, you particularly take very, very seriously about giving back to the community. Persevering. And you mentioned also, we talked a little bit about teams and having people around you who you trust, whether they're family or not, right? You want to do business with people you trust and respect. Being aligned in your vision as a team. Clear responsibilities, right? You said your parents had clear roles in the businesses, and they knew each other's roles, but they also knew each other's jobs as well as their own. The mentors, curiosity and exploration. I can't believe that is just in travel. I think that you are that way in business. Like you talked about, oh, what's the next project? You can see your face light up about it. And trying new things, getting through all of the things when you're going through that tough time. And when you talked about your mom, right, that you looked at her and said, oh, I can't whine because, nobody has it harder than her. What I see is that she was an amazing role model for you, right? Getting through that time, as difficult as it was, to get through that, right, taught you perseverance and strength and courage, because it takes that to get through that. And so these are all, and there's others on this page. I wrote a bunch of notes that you said, but, and I love that COVID rhythm. I'm going to have to use that one. But I think, you're cooking now. And so you use a lot of ingredients in your recipes, but there's always one main ingredient, right? I'm Italian. I always say we cook, a lot of pasta or sauce or gravy or whatever everybody calls it. And there's always a main ingredient. What's Devmotwani's main ingredient to success?
I like to think that it's this didn't come up directly, but indirectly, it's not kind of an underlying theme, and that would be integrity. I think that when you're in business and you're ambitious, you're given opportunities to, I'd say, maybe take advantage of certain opportunities that might bend what you would normally consider to be, the right thing to do. And in my world, I never had that. I presented plenty of opportunities, but I never took them. And I don't want to take credit for this as I'm saying, because I'm a real estate developer. So we're all I live in a challenging business, but I inherited a family name in this community, and a track record and a reputation that I had to live up to and uphold. And so I always would pass those opportunities that were maybe shortcuts, and always had to have integrity because it wasn't my name and my business, it was my family. But what that did for me was it would always come back to me and pay off in spades, skipping off those maybe short-term opportunities because they were, it was a short-term gain, always led for me by bypassing those things and making sure I focused on my reputation. I always did the right thing. I always did what would make my mom proud, or respecting the family name. Always came back and paid me in spades, whether it was 6 months or a year or 3 years later. So, I kind of say it as, to tell people, play the long game. Don't just play the short game, because when you're early in your career, what seems like maybe a big reward is never worth, challenging your integrity, challenging your reputation, because over the long run, and when you get later in your career, you'll have much bigger opportunities, and people will remember you did the right thing, and so then they'll bring you opportunities, and they'll invite you into their deals. And so, to me, that's what's paid the most. And again, it's not like I was smart or I knew it. I just had to do it because I was fortunate and inherited a reputation that I had to live up to.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think you're absolutely right. And it does come back. You don't do it for that reason, right? You do it for the right reasons, but it does
Correct.
come back. And I couldn't agree with you more. And everything that you do in the community, right? Not just from a business perspective, but also from a giving back perspective, and so well regarded, both yourself and your family. And Andrew Koenig, who's our incoming chair after Tim Rubin, we already said, we haven't given up on getting you onto the Junior Achievement Board. So we're just waiting patiently for that, because that's exactly what we've built, is a group of leaders with integrity, with a vision for the future, especially for our young people, right? And who want to pass that on so that they can be in your business, they can grow in your business and be the next you. And that's what we want for our children. So, Dev, thank you. Thanks for sharing stories that maybe some people have not heard. Thanks for sharing your ingredients. It is a great recipe. And I know you shared a recipe with us, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get to try all these recipes, which I love. So, but hopefully we will get to see you soon in person. And I just want to thank you again for all that you do for our community, and for, just what you do to develop our community, right? From the business perspective. Fort Lauderdale is not the same place it used to be, and that's because of people like you with the vision. So thank you for all that you do, and thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all you do, Junior Achievement, and you personally. So you've done a lot of great things. It's great seeing you out in the community, and definitely love to get more involved with you guys. And
all right, it's on video now.
As I get more time. I know.
Got it on tape. Anyway, thanks again. And thank you, everyone who's out there watching. We could not be more proud and more privileged to have had Dev with us this morning. We have got such a great lineup of shows coming and guests that I know that you'll be inspired and motivated by. And so, everyone, have a great day. let's get cooking.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hopefully Chris is on there and he